Hello and welcome to The Conversation. I'm Abby and Lois is out today, so we have a special guest, Lauren Flynn.
Hello.
We wanted to bring her on because she is the guru of podcasting here at the Union-Tribune, along with her team. They've been working on some really great podcasts that they've introduced this year, and one that I've been particularly hooked on is called Under the Gavel. And so we wanted to bring her in to discuss kind of what it's about, what you all should know about it, and why you should be listening, because trust me, it is amazing. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you.
So we have this, the Rebecca is the How case, which a lot of people in San Diego are familiar with. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk a little bit about the background of the case and then talk about, we've turned our Union-Tribune coverage of this case into a podcast, which if you don't know what a podcast is, it's kind of like a radio show that's found through apps, which is
or
better
online.
for the digital age.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll pan it to you.
Podcast. Someone recently described podcasts in general as like on-demand radio.
Oh,
so that you can
there you go.
Listen to it whenever you want, rather than having to tune in at a certain time. So this case, the case itself. Let's start with that. Rebecca Zahow in 2011 was found hanging from a second-story balcony at the Spreckles Mansion in Coronado. She was found bound. Her hands were bound behind her back. Her ankles were bound. She was naked and gagged with a t-shirt. She was found hanging. She was dead. Right. This case is the case of the wrongful death lawsuit that her family has filed against her boyfriend's brother, Adam Shacknai, who's the only person home at the time. He's the one who called 911, and he said that he cut her body down. So it's there's a lot of conspiracy theories, I think, that get thrown around, which makes this case really interesting because it doesn't, at first glance, let me backtrack. It was ruled a suicide initially.
Yeah.
After a few weeks investigation, it was ruled a suicide. But it's very strange the way it all happened. And just a couple days before she was found dead, she was the only adult home when her boyfriend's 6-year-old son, Max, fell off a second-story balcony, suffered life-threatening injuries that ultimately he died from.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this such an interesting case for sort of true crime interested people, is that there are a lot of factors. It wasn't just a one-day thing.
Yeah.
This is an interesting family situation.
And there seems to be like sort of like equal motivation for her family to have perhaps, or hit the Max's family than his uncle, Adam. It seems like there's equal motive for him to have killed her, and then her to have also felt so guilty that she would have killed herself.
Right.
But the fact that she was found in such a strange way is...
So now I'm hooked on this podcast because there's so many interesting facts. And so again, like she said, it was ruled a suicide, but now the family is suing for wrongful death. Mm-hmm. And so the podcast, which is put on by the Union-Tribune, is reporting on the trial as it goes, which I have been so interested to get into because there's so much you can learn from reporting about, when a death occurs, what surrounds it. But a court case is a whole different story because we're able to hear experts explain why they decided something was how it was, and people defend themselves and try and blame each other. You get way deeper into a story than you would by just reading the facts. So what made you guys decide to turn this into a podcast? Like, it works so well.
Thank you. We've wanted to do a true crime podcast for a long time. We didn't have a good, strong subject. And this is a very well-known, this had national media attention when it first happened. And so we figured, there is no more intriguing story in San Diego, crime story at this time, at least in my opinion. So we chose to do this one. And it's pretty, I think, easy for me because Pauline and Lindsay and Gary and Terry, whoever's been in court, they sort of do all the reporting, and then I just we talk to Pauline Reppard, our court reporter, every week about what happened in court, and she's been reporting in court for a very long time, so she knows what she's talking about, and it's definitely, I've learned a lot about the way courts work from this.
Yeah,
and
that's what I think is so cool about this podcast is, of course, the Union-Tribune has been covering this case for, what, 7 years now?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have all of that background on our website that you can check out, but then we have reporters here who are so good at covering court and know all about this type of case and are bringing you kind of expert opinions of what's happening there. So Lauren's the host, and as you can tell, she's a great host and has a great podcast voice, as I should just say. And then, our newsroom contributes too with their coverage and their kind of expertise on what goes on in court and what's to come. And so where are we now with the case and the podcast?
The next episode that will come out is about last week's days in court.
Yeah, so this is an unfolding podcast.
Yes. And so last week was, I believe, I'm having a little trouble remembering. It may have been just like the final wrap up. I can't remember if this is when Adam Shack and I testified or if we've already published that one. Do you remember?
I just listened to that one. So
that one's already out.
That was one of the biggest episodes. You got to check it
out. That was when the defendant testified. So right now we've got like final defense witnesses. We've got a couple of forensic pathologists, a clinical psychologist, a leading suicidologist in America, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And then that wraps up the witnesses and experts. And then this week, which will be next week on the podcast, is our closing arguments. And then it goes to the jury. And
so clearly there has never been a better time to tune into this podcast because it is getting to the final moments of this case. And when do they expect it to wrap up? Maybe in the next few weeks or so?
Week or two, I would think. But Pauline told me it could go on for several weeks. It could go on for a few days. It just depends on how quickly the jury reaches a verdict, if they even reach a verdict.
So it's definitely the time to check out this case, which we have. If you go to the San Diego Union-Tribune.com, we've got tons of coverage.
Yes.
And then if you go to San Diego Union-Tribune.com/podcast, you can find this podcast. Where else can it be found and heard?
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, anywhere you can listen to them. If you're new to podcasts, I would just search under the Gavel Union-Tribune. We've got, if we scroll down here, we have all of the episodes listed here, and then where you can subscribe to them as they become available.
So we'll share that link to YouTube and Facebook for all of you out there watching, so you can get up to date with what's going on. And speaking of podcasts, this isn't the only podcast we have here at the Union-Tribune. That San Diego Union-Tribune.com/podcast page. We'll go there right now and show you some of what we have going on. And Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about what else we have on here?
Yeah, our newest podcast is the Hot Lava Podcast, but it's PADCAST because it's about the Padres. It's hosted by Kevin Acey and Jay Posner, talking about the Padres, and obviously their season just started, so we're going to figure out how that works as we go along because it's brand new.
Great name.
When football season starts up again, we've got America's Finest Fantasy Football Podcast, also hosted by Kevin Acey and Eddie Brown. We have a couple of podcasts from Pacific Magazine. Kiss My Glass and Dish It Up are our drinking and eating podcasts. We have a weekly in-depth look behind the news that is Refocus, hosted by Daniel Wheaton. And then we have a daily podcast, which goes up Sunday nights through Thursday nights, so like Monday morning through Friday morning, called San Diego News Fix, and that's like our top 3 headlines that are top 3 local headlines.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're obviously trying to bring you some of the best content in San Diego, some of the best, I mean, eating and drinking Pacific is the go-to for some of that.
We have, that is hosted by Edwin Real of the San Diego Eating and Drinking Facebook group. I think I got that right. If I didn't, I apologize. But he knows all about food and drinks in San Diego. He's very well versed, and he brings in guests from specific restaurants or bars or
so awesome
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so check those out. Again, we'll be posting the link in the comments section. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll try to address those. Lauren, again, hosts Under the Gavel, which I have been so hooked on. I have to say that I feel I'm not always into that true crime type of story, but this particular one has, you know, I'm discussing it with all my friends, all my family. What about you? It's really interesting.
People come up to me and they're like, Lauren, what do you know that we don't know? And I don't know anything that isn't readily available on our website. I, of course, have my conspiracy theory, my inner conspiracy theory, but I'm doing I'm trying really hard to be objective with this podcast. We're seeing both sides of it.
Yeah, which is great.
And it's just it's really fun for me because I am a true crime. I'm a huge true crime fan. And this case is just so ambiguous and so, like, I don't know what is going to happen.
I feel like I go back and forth every episode.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
With what I think. So
me too.
Clearly they're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Hello to those of you watching. Again, this is The Conversation, and we usually have Luis here, and we're talking about what we're doing on our blog, The Conversation. We just wanted to bring Lauren in to give our viewers an inside scoop of what's going on with some of the podcasts that we have here. It's kind of new to the Union-Tribune to be getting these podcasts going. This one Hot Lava just started, and I'm sure we'll have some more coming down the road, but we'll save that for another episode. But on The Conversation today, we're going to be having, we have something up now on a lot of the teacher protests that have been going on across the country. And then today we're looking into what's happening with Sinclair Media Group, which you guys have probably seen on social media and elsewhere. So check out The Conversation on SanDiegoUnionTribune.com. We're also on Twitter at SDUTideas. And that's it for The Conversation. Hopefully we'll have Lauren back someday soon. She's been great.
Thank you.
And we'll see you every day here at noon. And that's it for us. See ya.
Bye.